Good morning, I'm Abe Madcore. We are live, SBJ All Access at the Octagon Sports Marketing Symposium here in New York City at the Crowne Plaza Hotel. We're going to have a little fun for the next 15 minutes talking about trends in sponsorship and marketing. I'm joined by a very great group. We're going to kick off the conference in just a few minutes. But to my left, we have Michael Robichaud from MasterCard. We have John Shea from Octagon, and my colleague here, Terry Lefton. Gentlemen, good morning.
Morning.
Thanks for joining, bright and early here in the city. Baseball fever running through Yankee Nation here.
Yes.
I want to start first with the next day and a half. We're going to talk a lot about trends in sports marketing and sponsorship. What are a couple that you're particularly paying attention to? Michael, I'll start with you on that.
Well, I think we always have to keep an eye on attendance, viewership, just basic, how are these sports continuing to evolve, right? So we all know about evolving audiences and youth and what other sports and so many options they've got. So are the main sports that we know, the traditional sports, holding their audience? How are they evolving them? How are they changing the experience? What is it that they're doing to kind of bring in new fans? And then what are all these other new sports that we know of coming in? What are they doing to attract that on? So people only have so much time and money, so I think that's a big one.
John.
A couple of things, Abe. First and foremost, we talk a lot about the new endemics, so technology sponsors and the role that they are playing in creating new and improved fan engagements, how they're improving how clubs and teams and leagues interact with their fans. So new endemics are prevalent right now, as are other categories.
Terry, you see a lot of content, you see a lot of, like he said, technology. What are you paying attention to?
The word I hear more than any other is the one you just mentioned, content. It's become known as the C word. Everyone drops it 40 times a day. Everyone has a different definition of what it is. Related to that, I would tell you that the biggest story we talk about in the newsroom every day is how a business based on linear TV gets to the next model, which will involve non-linear TV. I'm not sure it's there yet, and tangential issue, power of social media, how do marketers take advantage of it? I think to this point, they've just sort of tried to do the same thing, which is run some video or static ads on top of social or digital, which to me isn't really very progressive.
To that point, John, as we developed this program, a lot of the theme was about looking what's next. Forward thinking, brand forward, fan forward. The first session this morning will be about Gen Z and appealing to Gen Z. Like, how do marketers and how do agencies try to stay fan forward and brand forward? What's the thought process?
I think first and foremost, we have to step back and avoid the me first. I think we have to look at it from the fan's perspective. What are the opportunities to solve problems? How can we help to enhance their experience? If we step back and avoid answering brand first, but fan first, it allows us to have insight into what is important to them and how to help solve problems for them.
Your thinking on that, Michael?
Yeah, I think it's both the live experience and the being away, right? So if you think about technology, I still think we have a long way to go, certainly in the U.S., on the experience from how do you take all those pain points out, right? So TV and all the different ways are so great now. There's so many great ways to absorb content and to watch sports, live sports even still. So do you go to the match? Do you go to the game? How painful is that? Are there ways that we can use technology to make that experience more fun, easier? All the things that kind of those pain points in the way. On the same token, the audience is obviously much bigger that's not there. So as Terry was saying, if you've got it from a linear to non-linear, but just how is it I absorb it? How is it I maybe get some of my videos? Or it just depends on what the sport is or what the content is. But yeah, you have to think of that audience that's outside first.
And Terry, a lot of talk in your world about getting young people, Gen Z, involved. As a parent, you see it.
Yeah, I think, young people versus old people, to me it's still the basics. I mean, if you go to, especially a football game, people are looking at this more than they're looking at the game. But how come we don't have the basics yet? There's some rights issues, I understand, but how come my phone isn't telling me where my seat is? How come I don't have ubiquitous ordering?
Exactly.
Just basics like that, I think, would make people a lot
It's
happier,
like
whether you're 50 or 5.
Yeah, it's Uber experience. Why is it I have to tell you where I'm sitting? You sold me the ticket.
Right.
You know where I'm sitting. You gave me the ticket. So things like that.
And you're one of the biggest sponsors in the park or the arena. So why isn't that happening? Rights issues, I understand, but we should have gotten through that a long time ago.
That's a great point in terms of, as you taking away as much friction from the experience and making it easier, because we can all admit sometimes going to these sports events isn't an easy experience.
Right,
it's a challenge.
Right, and then we get back to home experience, which is pretty darn good now, versus away experience. You know what? When you're home, the parking's good.
Yeah.
The waitress service, quote unquote, is pretty good, and when you're home, the drive home, that's pretty good too.
So before we finish with some stories we're watching, I want to go around and like a little bit of what you're spending your time on. Michael, you and I were chatting. You're going to be in Asia for the Rugby World Cup, big event that maybe a lot of people in the States don't even really follow, but it's a big part of your portfolio.
It is. Rugby's, this is the third biggest event in the world. It's the biggest one this year. It's got its core markets, so that's one of its challenges. It's got to grow beyond its historical core markets.
Which are what? Its core markets?
Basically all of the UK and Ireland,
Accurate.
then you've got South Africa, New Zealand, Australia, and then Argentina. So you've got those core markets, but they need to grow. The U.S., look, everybody wants the U.S. They would love to have a World Cup here. That's not really a big secret. That's definitely further down the road, but getting the U.S. more involved. Canada's in there, but they need to change that a little bit. So I've spent a ton of time on that. That's where a lot of the growth of our
You
business
like that
is.
event?
I do, yeah. Look, it's a great sport. It's a great group. Everything from the traditions and the rules and the traveling fan base, they're going to add over 400,000 people to go to Japan. And what it is, it's a life experience. So the way that these World Cups get announced, they say, "Oh, I've always wanted to go to Japan. I love rugby," and they start planning it 3-4 years out. We're already planning the next one.
That's great. John, what are you spending a lot of your time on? And
A few areas. We are first and foremost working on our creative output. So Terry mentioned content, so storytelling is a big part of that. So we've made a lot of investments in people and process to improve how we ideate, what we ideate, and how we bring stories to life with our clients that ultimately resonate with with customers and clients out there. Second is the use of data. How do we use data to help inform our decisions, to help inform our clients, to provide insights about consumers and customers, ultimately to help improve business. And then lastly is our innovation team is spending a lot of time in the technology space.
Sure.
AI, AR, how do we create new enhancements and new opportunities to engage fans while they're in the stadium, but more importantly, while they're away from the stadium, so it's truly immersive.
And Terry, what do you get a sense that some of your sources are spending a lot of their time on?
Well, I want to throw one back to Michael for a second, because I'm wondering how he feels about the future of rugby here, because I think the sevens version probably does have a good future here. The larger version, which is what, 15, is incomprehensible to Americans, I believe.
Right.
Maybe someday, but right now it's like, what?
Yeah.
So how do you feel about it? I think, people have asked me about, what second tier sport. I think that's got a pretty good future here, but I'm wondering what you think, because you got to answer.
Yeah, it does, and they have a weird challenge for themselves, right? The idea of having two forms of the same sport, when you've got sevens and 15s. Sevens is in the Olympics. Everybody knows the Olympics is one of the best ways to grow a sport beyond core markets, but that's not the exact same game. So I think they're trying to grapple with that. Obviously, having the U.S. good at that, and some other countries, at least as a start. But it's got a lot of work ahead of it. But we'll see.
So wait 40 years, sevens rugby and 3-on-3 basketball will be the stars of the Olympics.
Exactly.
Right?
Well, and that does
takes
speak
time.
to speak to this notion of it's a faster game. You can engage an audience, and then the goals, and how do you translate that to 15?
In terms of people I'm talking to, everyone's always looking for new money in the sponsorship business, so this hasn't changed much. I mean, gambling's rolling out, and people are looking at that, and of course, CBDs / marijuana per se is rolling out a little bit. There's some kind of parlay bet into who gets the most states, right? Can we do that? But I think those are the two people are looking at, and we'll see which one gets the most momentum.
So as we finish up, a lot of stories that we're already talking about, a lot of stories in sports business worth keeping an eye on. Certainly we're coming off this NBA China issue, which is probably one of the largest stories of the year so far. But let's go around. Story in sports business you're watching most closely and why? And Terry, I'll start with you on this one.
This is more of an agency story, so I'll be interested to see what the gentleman on my right has to say. Below the Line, which is your form of marketing, has been somewhat immune to the bashing of fees, et cetera, that above the line has. Do you expect any pressures there? Because you guys are returning much better than traditional ad agencies now.
I'd say we feel the pressure already.
Okay,
so,
okay.
We're under the microscope. We're having to provide value to our clients and prove our worth day in and day out. So we're in that. I think if we provide holistic services, we have the best opportunity to continue to provide value, and that's ultimately what clients are looking for.
John, what are you keeping an eye on?
The continued development of female professional sports.
Yeah.
And so I think individual sports have made faster strides than team sports, so I think there's great opportunity on the team sports side for women's sports to raise the profile to the appreciation and recognition of the athleticism, as well as to continue to build the business.
Anyone in particular, John?
We're looking at the NWSL.
Okay.
Can they turn the momentum of the Women's World Cup into proof of concept for their business?
And they certainly had good attendance numbers post-World Cup. You
They
saw
have,
the bounce there. Michael?
Actually, same one, and we've actually been working a lot in Europe and other places on it already. We've got a partnership now with Naomi Osaka. I think now is the time, and I think there's a lot of things though that have to happen. It's not going to happen by accident. I think this notion of data, which we can talk about over the days of, the data doesn't support it, but that means you have to think forward and say, what would it look like in 3 years? You have to be willing to invest, whether it's media, sponsors, sports, to say, we're going to build this now, so that in 3 years the data will support it.
So almost a predictive bet, or a predictive action.
Yes, actions are going to things are going to have to change because people are going to have to just do things differently, or you're going to get the same result.
Well, all these topics will be discussed over the next day and a half here at the Sports Marketing Symposium. I know there's a fear of missing out. We wish you were here, but follow us on social and follow us on Twitter. For Terry Lefton, for John Shea, for Michael Robichaux, I'm Abe Madcore. We'll see you down the road.